Hi. To first of all begin with, I do want to thank the entire founded team for putting together this program, Triumph, which is India's leading D&I virtual career fair. My name is Sahil Sharma, and I'm excited to explore this crucial topic: unconscious biases, overcoming the hidden barriers to inclusion in Indian organization in particular. In a diverse and dynamic country like India, understanding and addressing the unconscious bias is vital for fostering an inclusive workplace. So let's just dive in. Um, to begin, let's just define what unconscious bias is. Typically, and as it's defined, it refers to the attitudes, stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions on a subconscious levels. These biases can be related to race, it can be related to gender, age, religion, or any other characteristic, and they often shape our behavior without us even realizing it. I will now move on to some of the examples of the unconscious biases in the Indian organization, where the unconscious bias can manifest in various ways. Some common examples that may include, on the gender-based biases could be an assumption that women are less competent in the leadership roles, because you're sort of trying to drive an alpha culture in the organization. And this particularly exists in, the companies that are at an initial growth stage, where the firm belief typically is that to grow the organization, you need men who can typically devote more time, maybe, who are more energetic and who are more competent to be, leading those leadership roles. The second example that I can probably put together is the linguistic biases, where certain regional accents are perceived as less professional. And there could be the regional dialects, there could be regional specific regions also, that could drive the unconscious bias in our mind. For instance, people from North India may not really work, and get acclimatized to the culture in the southern part of India. And therefore, I've seen people unconsciously creating that bias and rejecting some of the great candidates that you may have. The third sort of bias, which is the age bias, where you feel that the older employees may face challenges related to the age, where their ideas or abilities are undervalued in favor of the younger colleagues who are perceived as more innovative and adaptable. We tend to sort of ignore the years of experience that these more tenured people bring in with them, and sometimes driving that whole great blend really helps the organization scale at a much faster rate. The fourth sort of a biases that you could probably encounter, and again this is an unconscious bias, is that of appearance, which is based on the physical appearance, weight, height, how someone looks, etc. Right? So those are some of the examples of the unconscious biases. Now it can definitely take various forms, and it's important to note that unconscious bias is not only limited to these examples and can take various forms and shapes. Organizations today need to be aware of these biases and work towards creating a more inclusive and equitable work environment for all of their people. Training, awareness programs, and promoting open dialogue about biases are essential steps, in addressing some of these unconscious biases, typically in the Indian organization, where driving the whole diversity, equity, inclusion is just still at a very initial stage. Let's understand the impact of unconscious bias on the inclusion piece. And the unconscious bias poses a significant challenge to fostering inclusion in the workplace. It creates invisible barriers that hinder diversity and limit opportunities for growth and collaboration. Employees who sort of experience bias may feel excluded and undervalued, which could definitely lead to a decreased productivity and job satisfaction. The impact of inclusion due to unconscious bias can be profound and far-reaching, which could typically affect an individual, team, or overall organizational culture. Understanding this impact is definitely crucial, in recognizing the significance of addressing unconscious bias to create a more inclusive workplace. Here are some key aspects, of the impact that I could think of, and Number one is the employee well-being and the job satisfaction. Look at this, so the inclusive environment foster a sense of belongingness and psychological safety. When employees feel valued and respected for who they are, their well-being improves, which definitely leads to a higher job satisfaction, and overall happiness quotient at your workplace would definitely increase. The second one, which is the talent retention and attraction. What I've typically seen is that in an inclusive organization, you tend to attract and retain the top talent. People are more likely to stay in a workplace where they feel appreciated and have equal opportunities in growth and the development opportunities. The third one, which is the employee engagement and productivity. Inclusive workplaces promote collaboration and teamwork, which encourage employees to share their diverse perspective and ideas. This increased engagement also leads to a higher productivity and innovation within the teams. The fourth one, which is creativity and innovation. Look, diverse and inclusive teams are more creative and innovative. The combination of various viewpoints and experiences fosters the outside box thinking, which facilitates problem solving, which in turn leads to the better outcomes and a great decision making process. The next one, which is reducing the turnover and cost, these are the fundamental business matrices that can be driven through the impact of inclusion. And when you address the unconscious bias and promote an inclusive environment in the organization, your turnover rates also reduce. This is critical as a high turnover can be expensive for the organization in terms of recruitment, training and loss of productivity. Let's understand how does this impact the overall decision-making process. Well, if you have an inclusive workplace, that will encourage an open dialogue and diverse input during a decision-making process. This can lead to a more comprehensive and a well-rounded, well-thought decision process that considers various perspectives and potential failures and pitfalls. The last but not the least, of course, is the employee development and growth. Inclusive environment provides equal opportunities for professional development and growth. All employees can access training, mentorship, and leadership opportunities without any sort of biases that would hinder their progress. There was a time when we only talked about diversity, which expanded to the equity, inclusion, and now when you think about the DE&I, there's a new term that has been added which says DEIA, where A stands for accessibility. And accessibility is nothing, so you have a diverse workforce, you are driving equitable processes, and there is an inclusion in the whole process that you put together. But do people have the access to the same processes, same set of resources, etc.? That's another thing that we need to think about. Let's take an example. You have a library, you have a college where you have a diverse set of students. Everyone is getting an equal opportunity to opt for whatever course that they want to opt for. There is an inclusion in the whole process of bringing those students to the colleges. But let's now understand the library, which has the books and the resources. And if these books and resources are not accessible to your diverse set of students, you have failed as a diverse, equitable, and an inclusive organization. So that's what I sort of wanted to bring here. The next one, which is checking your blind spot and how do you sort of find ways to look at the unconscious bias. It's essential for individuals and organizations to recognize and acknowledge their unconscious biases. Identifying them is the first step towards addressing the issue, and that's true for anything and everything that we are looking at solving for. Self-awareness, regular trainings, open conversations are effective ways to shed light on these hidden biases. Here are some strategies and methods which could help identify the unconscious biases. The first one is the self-reflection and awareness. Engage in a self-reflection conversation to identify your own biases. You need to pay attention to your thoughts, how you feel, how you react towards different individuals or a set of people. question why you might have certain assumptions or stereotype about those people or that set of people. The second one is the education and training. Provide your people with training on unconscious biases. This can include workshops, seminars, or online courses that raise awareness about different types of biases and their impact on the decision-making process overall. The third one is the anonymous surveys and feedback. You could definitely, conduct these surveys to gather feedback from employees about their perception of biases in the workplace. This can provide valuable insight without fear of retribution. It's also going to give you a very good perspective of how is your organization perceived at this point in time from the biases perspective. And I can promise you that the results would definitely surprise you, because you would not have even thought about a bias that comes to you unconsciously. The fourth one is, of course, reviewing your hiring and promotion practices. Understanding and examining the hiring and promotion practices will help you analyze the data to check if certain groups are disproportionately underrepresented in certain roles or overrepresented in others. Are your job descriptions mentioning and stating the pronouns correctly or not? Is your promotion process fair and equitable or not? I think these are some of the things that we should definitely look at and examine and diagnose within the organization to sort of remove that unconscious biases. The fifth one, which is diversity and inclusion allies. We should definitely look at forming the allies or committees which are dedicated to promoting the diversity and inclusion in the organization. This group can be responsible for identifying and addressing biases, or any issues regarding the unconscious biases, within the organization. The next one that I want to talk about is overcoming the unconscious bias and some of the strategies that the organization could sort of implement to address this head on. The first one is, of course, training programs around diversity, which the organization should conduct for all their people. These sessions can actually raise awareness about unconscious biases. It can challenge stereotypes and definitely encourage empathy and let us be more respectful towards inclusivity. A second one where we talk about implementing the blind hiring practice, where the personal information like names, their age, the gender are concealed during the initial stages of the recruitment, and that helps ensure that the candidates are evaluated based on their skills and qualifications and competencies alone, and we are not really getting any sort of unconscious biases getting into the whole play. The third one is encouraging the inclusive language, promoting the use of inclusive language that can contribute to a more welcoming and respectful environment. Leaders and team members should be mindful of the words they use and avoid assumptions and stereotypes. I'll give you a very simple example. Typically in India, and it's assumed to be normal and it's assumed to be absolutely okay to be in a meeting and address the whole pack, in that meeting room as hello guys, hi guys, listen guys. That is absolutely not an inclusive language, because you have a different gender sitting in that meeting room. But what we assume is hey guys to be a normal language, which is not correct. The fourth one, diverse leadership and role models. I think creating opportunities for individuals from diverse background to hold leadership position serves as an inspiration and helps break down bias-driven barriers. The fifth one is the employee resource groups, and I'm sure most of you would be aware of that. Establishing these groups for various identities and interests can provide a safe space for employees to share experiences, support each other, and educate the broader organization about diverse perspectives. We come towards the end of this discussion, and I think in conclusion, while I'm addressing the unconscious bias, and which is crucial for building a more inclusive and equitable Indian workforce, by acknowledging our biases and taking proactive steps to overcome them, we can foster an environment where every individual feels valued and empowered. Remember, it's an ongoing journey, and change won't really happen overnight. But by working together and embracing diversity, we can break down these hidden barriers and create organizations that thrive on the strength of their differences. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead.